The missing Noon. Hung leaned against the window of the workshop office, watching sheets of rain pound the tin roofs. The storm had been relentless, drumming on wood piles and rattling every loose nail. Beyond the courtyard, muddy water ran like a second river across the dirt road. James's voice came crackling over the phone, steady despite the static. $5 billion. That's their offer. Land and factory together. Hung exhaled slowly, measuring the numbers. He could see the stretch of land in his mind, wide as an arm's reach, edged by the road on one side, fading into young forest on the other. $5 billion sounded like wealth, but he knew better. Too cheap, he said. That ground alone could grow $7 billion. The factory, the drying yard, everything. It's worth more. Should I tell them no? James asked. Tell them this. We're willing to let them rent the drying yard, but the land, no, not for sale. Hung closed the phone, letting the hum of the storm return. Deals could wait. The rain always reminded him of roofs and children, of the way life leaked if not patched quickly enough. At the other end of the valley, Ka stirred a pot of rice porridge, humming softly as the steam curled into her hair. Her daughter, Han, just shy of 2 years old, clapped her hands on the floor, delighted by the tin spoon she had stolen from the counter. Birthday soon, Saw whispered, touching Han's soft cheek. She had been saving rice flour and a little sugar for days, imagining a cake no bigger than her palm but sweet enough to mark 2 years of survival. Life had not been gentle since her early marriage unraveled, leaving her to raise Han alone. She remembered the court's refusal to recognize her union. It had been too young, unofficial, unregistered. Still, the absence of a certificate didn't stop love from becoming a child, and it didn't stop the burden from weighing heavier each season. Yet when Han giggled, the world seemed lighter. Back at the workshop, Tuan arrived soaked, mud streaking his trousers. He bowed quickly, sat when told, and gratefully accepted the cup of soy milk Hung offered. The rain has ruined schedules, Tuan muttered. The trucks are stuck. The wood batch only just arrived. Hung nodded. I heard. Kia Village lost trees too. Flood brought them down. They spoke of factories like farmers spoke of soil, barren or fertile, ruined or ripe. Hung explained how one plant would be shut down. Machines too broken, wood too scarce. Better to disband than bleed slow, he said. Tuan listened, eyes wide. When silence settled, Tuan confessed, sometimes I wish for less wood and more life. But I have my mother, my brother. I send money back each month. One day, if I save enough, I'll build a house. Hung studied the younger man's face. A house is not just wood and walls. It's who waits inside. By late afternoon, the rain softened. Che tied her scarf, stepped outside to the shed to check on the chickens. She left Han on the woven mat playing with her spoon. Just a few minutes, she thought. But when she returned, the mat was empty. Her breath caught. She searched corners, behind baskets, under the low bed. Nothing. She called Han's name until her throat ached, running outside, asking neighbors. They shook their heads. Panic gnawed. She searched the road, the pass, the streams where floodwater still churned. Her feet bled on stones, but she did not stop. By evening, she collapsed at her grandmother's doorway. Han, gone. The old woman pulled her in, her voice firm despite the tremor. Don't cry. We will find her, the police, the neighbors. Someone will know. But you must breathe, child. You must breathe. At the police station, Ka trembled as she explained. The officer wrote carefully, name, Lai Tiu Ka, age, 18, child, Lai Tiu Han, nearly 2 years. When did the child disappear? 2 hours ago, Cha whispered. The officer put down his pen. We cannot treat this as kidnapping until 24 hours pass. Kay's voice broke. But she's too small. She can't walk far. She can't... Rules were rules, they said. Wait. She staggered outside, collapsing against the stone steps. Rain began again, soaking her hair, mixing with tears. She thought of the birthday cake, the spoon, the empty mat. Meanwhile, Hung sat with James, discussing liquidation of projects, the possibility of selling 3 sites. But his mind was not in the numbers. He kept glancing at his phone, waiting for news from CA. When Thang, another colleague, arrived to discuss bridges and machinery, Hung finally confessed. A friend. Her child is missing, since yesterday. I can't sit still. Thang's face hardened. Then we spread the word. I'll tell the brothers to ask around. We'll print photos, pass them to locals. The valley is small. Someone will know. Hung gripped his friend's arm. Thank you. The next day, police called Hung back. They had reviewed surveillance footage from nearby roads. A man, young, 20 to 25, carrying a small bundle. The frame froze on the outline of Han's tiny shoes dangling. Hung clenched his fists. It must be Khan. Who is Khan? The officer asked. Jiang Xiao Khan, Hung replied. Her ex-husband. Early marriage, no certificate. He went to prison once. He is the only one with reason. The officers wrote the name. They would investigate. Hung knew in his bones it was him. 2 nights passed. CA had not eaten. She walked the roads at dawn, calling Han's name into the mist. She asked strangers, travelers, anyone if they had seen a little girl with wide eyes and a spoon clutched in her hand. Each no was a knife. By the 3rd morning, her voice was gone. She whispered only to herself, "If anything happens to you, my child, I will not survive." Word spread quickly in the valley. A child was missing. Farmers on their way to check maize fields repeated it. Women at the well paused mid-bucket, whispering her name. Even children, too young to understand, stopped their games when they saw Kay's frantic face and the hoarse way she called, Han! Han. The community had its own laws, unwritten, older than the police's 24-hour rule. When one child vanished, the whole village belonged to the search. By nightfall, men carried flashlights into the bamboo groves. Women tied scarves tight against the rain and walked the roadside. CA followed them all, stumbling, refusing to rest. Her grandmother's thin voice trailed behind. Breathe, child. You must breathe to keep looking. Hung tried to balance 2 lives at once, the calculations of factories and the chaos of a missing child. At dawn, he met James to finalize the closure of one plant. Rain dripped from their umbrellas as James spoke numbers. Machines broken, wood supply thinning, 3 projects ready to sell. Hung nodded, but his mind swam elsewhere. When Thang asked about the bridge construction, Hung finally said it aloud. Ka's child is gone. Thang's eyes widened. Gone. Vanished. 2 days. Then forget bridges. We'll find her first. At the police station, officers studied a shaky surveillance clip from the road. A figure, male, 20 to 25, carrying a small bundle. The frame froze on the outline of Han's tiny shoes dangling. Hung clenched his fists. It's Khan, Jiang Xiao Khan, her ex-husband. The officer raised a brow. Tell us everything. Hung told them. Khan's early marriage with Ka, the lack of legal certificate, his prison time, his temper. The officers scribbled, nodding. Highly likely, one muttered. But we need proof. Hung slammed the table. Proof? The proof is that a 2-year-old cannot walk away by herself. He took her. The officer stayed calm. Then help us find where he hides. Give us names, connections, places he might go. We will do the rest. Meanwhile, Ka wandered the mountain paths until her legs buckled. She collapsed at a shrine stone, forehead pressed against moss, whispering, "If my child is safe, Take all else from me, but not her. Neighbors found her and carried her home. She did not resist, only kept repeating Han's name. Her grandmother fed her broth, but Ka's lips barely opened. At night, she dreamed of Han's birthday table, the rice cake, the spoon, the empty chair. She woke screaming. Rumors spread that Khan had been seen near the border road. A truck driver swore he saw him carrying a child wrapped in a blanket. Others whispered he stayed in abandoned huts, moving constantly to avoid detection. Hung heard these whispers and felt his anger boil. He thinks longing gives him the right to steal. But love does not cage. 3 nights after Han's disappearance, the police chief called Hung. "We have enough. We traced Khan. 6 officers are surrounding his hideout now." Hung's breath caught. "Where?" "In the upper village. Stay where you are until we call. It could be dangerous." But Hung was already grabbing his coat. Rain hammered the tin roof of the hut where Khan hid. Inside, he cradled Han, who slept fitfully, whispering for her mother even in dreams. Khan stroked her hair. "I missed you, little one. They took you from me, but I'll keep you. I'll build us a life." His words cracked, half promise, half prayer. Then came the shout, "Police! Open up!" Khan froze. Han stirred, whimpered. He pressed her closer. The door burst open. Flashlights sliced the darkness. Officers rushed in, pulling him back. Han cried, reaching out blindly. One officer lifted her, wrapping her in a dry coat. "You're safe now," he whispered. Khan struggled. "She's my daughter. You can't take her from me." The officers restrained him. "You broke the law. Without consent, it's kidnapping. You'll answer for it." When Hung and Ka arrived at the station, Han was already wrapped in a blanket, sipping warm milk. Ka fell to her knees, clutching her child, sobbing into her hair. My baby, I'm sorry, I left you, I'm sorry." Han only patted her mother's cheek, murmuring, "Mama." Hung stood aside, chest heavy with relief. He wanted to weep too, but instead he placed a hand on Sa's shoulder. "She's safe. That's all that matters now." Before he was led away, Khan looked at Ka through the bars. His eyes were bloodshot, voice hoarse. "I only wanted to hold her. You shut me out. I couldn't stand it." Sa trembled but answered, "You could have visited. You could have asked. But you stole her peace. You stole mine." Khan bowed his head. "I am broken, but I never meant to hurt her." The officers dragged him away. Sa closed her eyes, whispering, "You already did." The village seemed quieter after Han was found, though nothing in the landscape had changed. The same roofs tilted under rain, the same muddy roads wound between fields. Yet for Ka, every shadow felt softer, every dawn brighter, simply because Han's breathing filled the house again. She spent days watching her daughter sleep, memorizing the curve of her lips, the rise and fall of her chest. When neighbors came to visit, bringing fruit and soup, she whispered thanks but barely looked away from Han. Her grandmother reminded her, "Do not let gratitude vanish with the storm. It was not only you who found her, it was all of us." Sa nodded, though guilt lingered. She had left Han alone for just a few minutes, and that gap had almost unraveled her world. Hung returned to his business, but his mind kept drifting back to Ka's shack. Between meetings about timber prices and phone calls about machines, he pictured Han's small hand clutching her spoon. James noticed his distraction. "You've fought storms before," he said. "Why does this one weigh heavier?" Hung didn't answer at first, then quietly, "Because money can be regained. A child cannot." That evening, instead of heading straight to the factory, Hung detoured to Ka's house. He found her outside, washing clothes by the stream while Han played with pebbles. She looked up, surprised. "You should rest," he said. "And you should work," she countered, smiling faintly. They laughed, and in that fragile sound lay the beginning of healing. The court moved quickly. Without a marriage certificate, Khan had no legal rights over Han. His act, taking her without Sa's consent, was ruled as unlawful detention. At the hearing, Khan spoke with tears in his eyes. "I did not mean harm. I only wanted to hold my daughter." The judge's gavel was firm. Love does not excuse breaking the law. Khan was sentenced to a term shorter than his past crimes warranted, partly because Han was unharmed. Yet the punishment was enough to remind him that longing without responsibility could become cruelty. CA listened in silence, holding Han in her arms. She felt no triumph, only exhaustion. Life did not return to normal. It became something different, slower, gentler. Sia no longer left Han alone, even for a minute. When she cooked, Han sat beside her, stacking spoons. When she worked in the garden, Han toddled behind, dragging a stick like a plow. On Han's delayed birthday, neighbors gathered. The rice cake was small, sugar sprinkled like morning frost, but it glowed brighter than any feast. Han clapped her hands, eyes wide, as Ka whispered, "You came back to me." "That's all I need," Hung attended to, standing quietly near the doorway. When Han reached out, he lifted her easily, holding her high so she could blow at the candle. The cheer that followed felt like sunlight after endless rain. Hung's factory stabilized in the following months. With James and Tuan managing operations, they closed weak plants and expanded in areas where timber was plentiful. Workers received their wages on time again, and the fear of unemployment eased. One evening, as he walked the yard of stacked boards, Hung reflected. The fight for survival was not only in markets, but in homes. The same determination that kept machines running was needed to keep families whole. He promised himself, CA and Han would not fall alone again. Months later, Xia sat outside her hut, watching Han chase butterflies. The valley was alive with the hum of cicadas, the rhythm of ordinary life. She thought of everything, of Khan's arms stealing Han away, of the nights she screamed into the rain, of Hung's hand steady on her shoulder when words failed. She whispered to herself, "We are still here. That is victory enough." Her grandmother joined her, sitting slowly. "Child, storms will come again, but now you know, when you call, people will answer. You are not alone." Ka reached for her grandmother's hand, squeezing gently. One evening, Hung visited again. He brought no soy milk, no contracts, only a small wooden toy he had carved himself, a horse with wheels. Han squealed, dragging it across the floor. Ka looked at him, eyes soft. "Why do you keep coming?" Hung hesitated, then answered, "Because I know what it is to build with wood. And I know what it is to rebuild after loss. You and Han, you're worth building for." She said nothing, only smiled, but the silence between them carried the weight of trust. The valley never rid itself of storms. Rain still battered roofs, floods still tore at roads, and markets still wavered with every shipment. But for Ka, noon no longer meant silence and fear. Noon meant footsteps, of Han running, of Hung arriving, of neighbors passing with soup. Life had returned, not as it was, but stronger. And when thunder rolled again, Ka did not tremble. She held her daughter close, whispering, "We survived once. We will survive again." The story of Han's disappearance became a quiet legend in the valley, retold at markets and weddings. The child who vanished and returned, the mother who never gave up, the man who chose protection over profit. And as years passed, whenever people saw Han laughing in the orchard, they remembered, even in the harshest storms, love could carve a path home.